NASCAR returns to Austin, Texas this weekend. We may now know exactly what illegal modifications the 6 team made, and apparently fans are just now realizing Chicagoland Speedway is probably gone for good. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. I hope you've had a fantastic week. I will be at Circuit of the Americas on Sunday for the Cup race, so if you're there at the track and you see me, feel free to come say hi. I plan to be filming my experience. It's gonna be a lot sunnier, also a bit warmer than last year's race, so I'm excited to document what a good weather Circuit of the Americas experience looks like. That actually leads into the first topic I want to discuss today. Adam Stern here references the Austin American-Statesman, which reports Speedway Motorsports expects a similar crowd at Circuit of the Americas this Sunday compared to last year's roughly 50 to 55,000. I read that and breathed a deep sigh of relief. As a native Texan, a guy who still lives here in the Lone Star State, I want to see this Circuit of the Americas NASCAR partnership succeed. I want the racing to be entertaining and exciting and thrilling, but I want the fans in the Austin, Texas, the Central Texas area to adopt it, to support it, to have fun with it. I was pleasantly surprised by the crowd last year, despite the shaky weather conditions. This year's race, it's gonna be warm, but it's gonna be sunny. I'm glad fans are still turning out. The muddy parking lot, the wet, sloppy racing, I'm glad that didn't scare too many Austinites away. I don't live in Austin anymore, but I used to, and there are many things about that city I cannot stand, but it's growing fast. There's a lot of money there. It's growing. It's trendy. Formula One has had a presence in that city now for almost a decade. It's good to see NASCAR carving out its own niche. I understand that not everyone going to this race lives in Austin. Like, I'm coming from Houston. There are probably people coming from Dallas who are sad Texas Motor Speedway lost its spring date. But I'm glad that Texas race fans are showing up. 50 to 55,000, that is a very respectable crowd. That's way more than Phoenix got a few weeks ago. A sellout crowd at Phoenix is nowhere close to 55,000. That's a really solid number, a number Texas Motor Speedway cannot and has not been hitting in recent years. NASCAR's always had the appearance, at least, of being kind of outdated. I am glad these last couple years, between Austin, between Nashville, they've made a conscious effort to bring their product to cities that are currently growing very, very fast. Austin, Nashville, those are cities where the action is. It's great that NASCAR is bringing their product to those markets. So I hope COTA is first and foremost an entertaining, a great competitive race, but two, I hope the fans that are there enjoy the experience. Circuit of the Americas is a state-of-the-art road course facility. Of course, it was built for Formula One. It was built for hundreds of thousands of people, so it can certainly handle a NASCAR crowd. Last year was fun. I think this weekend will be even better. Anyway, I just wanted to ramble about that for a moment. Let's talk briefly about the Brad Keselowski penalty that we discussed in yesterday's episode. Yesterday, NASCAR handed out one of the most severe penalties in series history. Brad Keselowski and his 6 team were docked 100 points, 10 playoff points. His crew chief, Matt McCall, was suspended for 4 races and fined $100 grand. That 100-point penalty knocked him from 16th to 35th in the standings. Talked about yesterday how now his playoff chances are almost solely dependent on whether he can win a race or not. A deep, deep hole for that 6 team for sure. A lot of fans yesterday, and still today to an extent, are clamoring for answers. Details. NASCAR notoriously skimpy on the details. They did cite section 14.5 of the rulebook yesterday, which according to reporters refers to the body of the car. So that gave us some details. Yesterday afternoon, after I put my video up, reporters Bob Pockrass, Bozy Tatarovich reported even more specific details. Bob Pockrass put this out. He said, "From everything I've been told by people who should know and confirmed by people who should know, the Keselowski violation has to do with a rear body panel modification." NASCAR handed out these stiff penalties because, according to them, Keselowski and team modified a single source part, which is a huge, huge no-no in 2022. Bob Pockrass adding some details there, and then Bozy tweeted, "After multiple conversations, it is my understanding that the panels on the rear of that number 6 car were likely modified, which is prohibited by the rules as they are spec parts. Material was likely added or removed from either the rear quarter panels or the rear fascia. Messing with what's inside those panels likely wouldn't be picked up by the laser scanning station on race day. It's the kind of thing that likely would only be found during an extensive teardown at the NASCAR R&D Center, which is in this case what happened. Of course, those are just reports. Nothing has been confirmed by NASCAR or by the team. In fact, we still don't know yet whether or not the team will appeal this penalty. They have until early next week to decide. And actually, as I was finishing editing this, Roush Fenway Keselowski announced they are appealing yesterday's hefty penalties. In connection to the penalties announced yesterday by NASCAR, we have filed a notice of appeal and look forward to the opportunity to work through the process. Bob Hawkers reported that Matt McCall, the crew chief, will still sit out this weekend, but those 100 points and 10 playoff points, RFK is in fact appealing. The appeals panel usually expedites DQs and those kinds of penalties, but in this case, it may take longer, so we'll see how long it takes for a final ruling to come down. Just wanted to update you guys here before I clicked upload. Again, I still don't fully grasp why NASCAR would be so vague and non-specific on this. Like, I feel like it'd be in everyone's best interest if NASCAR's came out and said, hey, here's what the 6 team did wrong. If we catch any of you other bozos doing the same thing, we're doubling the fine. Be transparent about it. You don't want other teams to start skirting the same line and getting busted for the same exact thing because they didn't know any better. I just don't get it. Is NASCAR trying to keep secrets so that other teams in the garage don't get any funny ideas? Like, if there's one thing I've learned the last few years, that information travels through the garage area very, very quickly. I just don't get it. Maybe there is a logical reason to keeping it all hush-hush, but it just leads fans to question its legitimacy. It feels like it's all being kind of swept under the rug, and fans aren't going to react nicely to that. Anyway, enough of that for this week. Yesterday, I saw this tweet circulating. Everyone was talking about it. Everyone was reacting to it. It comes from this user, JPet27 on Twitter, and he says, "That's all she wrote for Chicagoland Speedway, folks. It's never coming back now." And he attached several images, including this photo that I assume was taken recently outside of Chicagoland Speedway, showing that the land there attached to the speedway is available for sale. You'll also notice on that sign, it's a Hillwood development. We haven't talked about this in a year or two, but a couple years ago, NASCAR formed a partnership with Hillwood. At the time, they said to help develop some of the excess land around some of NASCAR-owned racetracks, which would include Chicagoland Speedway. So this doesn't seem like new information. We've known that NASCAR has been working with Hillwood for at least a couple of years. On what exactly, now that sure was still up to some sort of interpretation, but those other photos you can see. You also attach these plans for something known as the Route 66 Logistics Park. It appears to just be a big industrial park. You can see this map right here shows all these major buildings being built actually just outside of Chicagoland Speedway. That's what that line and those curves are. That is turn 2, that's the back straightaway. None of those buildings actually appear to be overlapping with the track itself. So again, that says phase 1 for this Route 66 business park, but at least as far as phase 1 is concerned, it doesn't look like the track is going to be damaged, torn down, or altered in any significant way. Again, phase 1, so theoretically phase 2, phase 3, if this industrial park expands, then yes, the track eventually would likely be on the chopping block. But does this mean Chicagoland Speedway is dead and gone forever? Not necessarily, and I don't mean to plant a seed of false hope in any of you Chicagoland Speedway fans' minds. If I were a betting man, I would say Chicagoland Speedway likely never sees a NASCAR race again, but I wouldn't say all hope is 100% loss. NASCAR in recent years has been very reactive. Had a couple good road course races in a row, boom, 7 road courses on the 2021 schedule. Fans keep talking about short tracks, boom, move the Clash to LA and build it inside of a football stadium. Fans like the 2018 All-Star race, boom, 550 high downforce at every intermediate for 3 years. 550 doesn't work on the next gen car, boom, back to low downforce, high horsepower at every track. Like NASCAR over the last 4 or 5 years has been extremely reactive. In some ways, I think for the better, in some ways for the worse. NASCAR now also owns a lot of these racetracks. For years, ISC, SMI were both kind of separate from NASCAR. They all kind of had to work together and collaborate. Now NASCAR owns ISC, which means NASCAR owns Chicagoland Speedway. I don't expect NASCAR to bring Chicagoland back to the schedule, but it was one of the best racing mile and a halves on the schedule in its time, especially by the end of its tenure. They last raced there in 2019, and it was one of the best races that year with that 550 horsepower package. Obviously, the 2018 race was an all-time classic with a fantastic finish. NASCAR has a long enough memory to remember the good days of Chicagoland, and they're still very interested in that Midwest Chicago area market. They've been talking about running a street race in downtown Chicago for the last couple of of years. It sounds like those talks continue to go up and down and nothing's really been solidified. If those conversations fall through, I won't rule out the possibility of NASCAR returning to Chicagoland Speedway. It is kind of out in the middle of nowhere. It's like an hour outside of Chicago. It's in Joliet, Illinois. But it's the best thing fans in Chicago, the third largest city in the US, have. Other tracks have industrial parks attached to them, like Nashville Superspeedway has a whole industrial park, a bunch of warehouses right outside the back straightaway. Anyway, I hate to give anyone false hope. Like I said, I don't expect Chicagoland to return to the NASCAR schedule, but I'm not going to rule it out entirely. I know the local government doesn't seem to know what to do with the track. There was rumors a few months back that they were going to give that land to the Chicago Bears to build a new arena, a new stadium. Those, of course, eventually fell through. So I don't know what's going to happen. It's a lot of land. These racetracks are huge. Even though there's a business park being built adjacent to the speedway, I wouldn't say that entirely spells doom for Chicagoland. I know I'm being way too optimistic, but I can't help it. The racing at Chicagoland the last couple years of its run was fantastic. And hey, the next gen car did race really well at Las Vegas. It raced really well at Auto Club. Maybe NASCAR will one day consider bringing Chicagoland Speedway back. I doubt it, but I don't see this Route 66 business park as the final nail in the coffin. It's not a good sign, without question, but it's not the final nail in the coffin. Anyway, that's all I've got to talk about this week. Just trying to breathe in some positivity into this whole situation, albeit misguided. I will see you all at Circuit of the Americas later this Sunday. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. As always, a big thank you to my amazing Patreon supporters. I couldn't do the show without your tremendous support each and every month. I greatly appreciate it. I will see you all probably late Sunday night after the race. I gotta get home from the track, film and upload everything. So you probably won't hear from me until then. Follow along on Twitter for race updates during tomorrow's Xfinity and Truck events, and of course the Cup race on Sunday. I will see you all later this weekend, or if you're at the track, I'll see you at the track later this weekend. Have a fantastic rest of your Friday, y'all.